let's jump on in.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of How We Made It. Today's a very special one because we're going through a very rare video with Khalid and Coachella. This is a massive show for myself, for Khalid, and this is an artist that typically doesn't have video content being released or even being made or documented, and so this is a very, very special project to myself, and I'm excited to bring you guys along and show you a little bit of how we made it and the relationships that it took to make this all happen. Kicking off, like, how this all came about, it's so weird, and this is like the classic story of you don't know what opportunities are gonna come from certain people, but you know they're influential people or they're people that are well connected, and so you just kind of do favors for them, or you've got their back when they need it most, knowing that it's gonna come back and benefit you in the long run. I talked about Dave Lingwood in the previous season. Dave Lingwood was one of the stars in the MTV show called The Buried Life. He's now producing a lot of TV shows. He produced Rory Kramer's Dare to Live MTV show. He actually brought me on to that TV show to be a camera operator, which was crazy. I was the youngest guy on set. Through that show, Rory, Dave, his executive producer, had gotten to know Khalid, and they shot an episode with Rory. And when I saw that Khalid was performing at Coachella, I knew that Dave was my immediate connect to Khalid. He introduced me to Khalid's photographer, who I then DM'd. We got into a conversation about me coming along to help him, not coming along to do my own thing, but coming along to help him, which was a very important part to all of this. That's kind of how it all came about. But that was a relationship that happened, 3 years ago with me and Dave, and then a year ago they shot the MTV show, and then a year later we're now at Coachella, and it kind of all the dots connected and it worked out really well. I think the key parts about this whole project coming about was that when I approached Khalid's photographer, his name's Anthony, he's an amazing guy, he goes by One Hispanic online. He's an amazing photographer, he's been working with Khalid for years now, and I reached out to him and I said, hey look, I know you've got it covered. Is there anything I can do on the video side to document Coachella a little bit bigger or better, because it's a bigger festival, and a lot of times festivals this big that mean a lot to artists, you want every angle covered. And so it was a good conversation. They looped me in with his creative team, which is a little bit different than most artists, and I think this is like super insightful for you guys to realize that every artist doesn't operate the same, and your communication out to artists shouldn't be the same. Some have the swag factor at festivals to have a massive guest list, and you asking to come on is a no-brainer for them because they can just send an email, put you on the guest list, and you're on. Where some smaller artists might have their guest list full, or they might not even have a guest list, and so they want you to shoot, but they can't get you into the festival. And so it's like, we want you to do it, but we can't get you a band, and then you either have to buy a festival ticket or you're not shooting it. So knowing that context is good. This one is a little bit different in the sense that, and this is my interpretation of it, this isn't like verbatim fact, but I'm comparing Khalid to my experience with Chainsmokers and with Tiesto, and all the other artists that I've worked with have typically been older than Khalid. Khalid is like super young and just blown up and is an amazing established artist, and it's only gonna get bigger from here. But he basically went from high school to touring the world and being one of the biggest artists in the world. And it's like, when you do your projects, whether it's film or video, or you just need help planning a party, you go to your friends, you go to your immediate friends, not because they're the most qualified for event planning or the most qualified videographer, they're just accessible and you think they can do the job. And Khalid had his high school friends, and he had to go on a global TV scale, and your high school friends probably aren't qualified for it, and instead of just like having them come along to do it, that's not gonna work. Labels then get involved and they build teams around you. And so there was a lot of teams that were built around Khalid that are tight with them, they work with them really well, but it wasn't like family that you get when you're with the Chainsmokers, with Tiesto, someone who's been in the industry so much longer. And they probably had that at one point, but after time and they get friends in the industry, they start calling, they know who to call, and they build this team and they handpick this team of their friends that get the vibe. And when you're backstage, everybody, you could just feel like it's a little bit more family. Where this felt a little bit more of like a put together team, there's nothing wrong with that. I was just been very spoiled with Chainsmokers and their crew. But I worked with a creative team that was super excited about the video, but no one else really cared. Where like you go to other camps and everybody's excited about the video, or else you wouldn't be there. Like if they don't want a video, you're not there. And so I was there because this one part of Khalid's team saw the value in it. No one else really did, which is fine. So I was just doing my own thing. But moral of the story, this video it didn't see the light of day. Like it's not on Khalid's Twitter. I think he thought about posting on his Twitter, didn't go on his Instagram, didn't go on his YouTube. There was not enough team communication, and there just like wasn't an actual real excitement about the video. And so when it came out, it was like, oh, what are we gonna do with this? And so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Before we jump into kind of my mindset on how I was gonna strategically shoot this show, I wanna give like a little bit of insight to give a reality check to people that are maybe shooting with artists and think that they should be, treated better, or should be getting paid more, should be doing, have better amenities, or they should be eating nicer food, or they should be traveling in like business class, whatever it is, like a reality gut check for us all. Both days that I had to shoot with Khalid, I walked through GA from the very front, and if you know anything about any festival or even Coachella, it is such a far walk. And I walked from the GA all the way to main stage, which was the farthest stage, with all my camera gear. And typically when you're with an artist, you go with them through the artist entrance and nobody flinches at your camera bags or anything. Where when you go through GA, it's like the biggest red flag, right? Like no big backpacks, no big professional cameras. I have like 5 lenses, no like batons. Like I have like a freaking Ronin S with me. And so it's like, we're in the desert, it's super hot. And I did that both for rehearsal day and for the actual show day, and that was just like the craziness of Coachella. And there's so many dancers, and there was like a choir, and there's like violinists and all these different things, and so there's so many moving parts, and I am such a small part in it. And I could have made a scene about me getting transportation back there, but I decided just to bite the bullet and get the job done. I was a little bit bitter about it in the moment, but it was just a good reality check for me that this show is bigger than normal, and it's not going to operate as normal. Check yourself. This show was different than any other show, and it was really difficult actually because he brought out so many featured artists. He brought out Halsey, Benny, both did East Side with him. He brought out Marshmello, he brought out Normani, and Billie Eilish. He has a 45-minute set, so if you think there's 5 featured artists, 45 minutes, each song is like 3 to 4 minutes. It's like half of your set is with featured artists. You want to typically capture featured artists from a couple different angles, but the tricky part is the stage is so big and it was so exposed, like there's no walls to hide behind, and you're with a new team, and so if you're out on stage, you're typically being seen by the public, or you're on like a massive screen behind the lead talent. That I found that I got stuck on stage because all the featured artists came out one after the other, so if I wanted to get to a different location, I had to waste some of the featured artists' time on stage by commuting to the next spot. Thankfully, Anthony, the photographer, was rolling with 2 cameras. He was focusing on his photos, but he had a video camera rolling just to get like something of a different angle, and that ended up saving me a ton in this. So if you see any like front angle on any of the featured artists in this video, it was shot by Anthony, and it was huge. And then any other artist that I didn't mention was actually from weekend 2 that the creative team I worked with required me to put in. I didn't go shoot weekend 2 because they didn't want to pay me, and I just stuck my foot down and said, I need to be paid for what I'm doing. This is a separate project, and I will be paid for my work. They try to flex like the opportunity on me, which I totally get, and I'm not bagging on their team at all. For so many people, this is like a no-brainer, go and do it. It was Easter Sunday with my family, and I hadn't seen my family in 4 months, and so I weighed a free project at Coachella or spending time with my family that I hadn't seen in 4 months, and I probably wasn't going to see for another couple months. So I chose that instead. This opportunity was cool, but I've also had amazing other opportunities in the music industry, and I feel like I've put in my time and I have enough work under my belt that I shouldn't be working for free. So I just kind of kindly declined that I wasn't gonna shoot weekend 2. Anthony tossed me a couple clips. I think John Mayer came out, Ty Dolla $ign, and Pusha T came out. Another thing, like planning ahead to shoot, is I really wanted this shot of Billie Eilish getting out of the car that Khalid had on stage. And so I shot the rehearsals with Khalid, which was something a little bit different than what I typically do with artists. I don't usually shoot a ton of rehearsals, but I shot with them 2 days in LA in like a small, one was a small studio space, one was in a large studio space. And I got this amazing storytelling piece of like Khalid saying, okay, how is Billie gonna come out? Like, I want it to be cool and I want it to surprise people. And then he was like, yo, what if we did the car and she popped out of the top? And like, oh, that doesn't work. What if she popped out of the door and she was in there the whole time? It's very rare that you get like the full story of like, oh, this artist came out in a unique way. And they're like, you didn't capture it. Like, there's conversations about how that came about. And the fact that the main artist was coming up with these ideas was really cool. And I captured it with my angle. Anthony had an angle on it. We had great audio. And then it was gonna actually happen. And so I wanted to shoot Billie actually walking out of this car in a really unique way. So my original idea was that Billie was sitting in this car and she's staring directly at the camera, like really like in Billie fashion, like kind of like dead and like creepy a little bit and kind of like bugged out, and looking at it and being like, you as a viewer be like, why is Billie staring straight at the camera? Like, what is this? She'd be in a car and so you'd be like, okay, Billie's in a car staring at a camera, what's going on? And then Billie, with the camera right here, would just turn to the left, open up the door, and then the camera would move from like a static angle and just show her walking out onto the stage with like 80,000 people screaming and losing their mind. And I really wanted to do that. And I would go up to Billie backstage. I'm like, yo, Billie, like, I've got this idea. I'm shooting a video for Khalid. This is the concept, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, right before I get to the point, Billie's mom comes over and like looks at me and she's like, Billie has something else she needs to be doing right now. Sorry. And I was just like, oh, yeah, all good. And it was like, Billie was like, she kind of looked at me like, yo, is this important? Because you should just keep telling me. But if not, and then I was just like totally like, oh, no worries. Like, I'll talk to you another time. Like, it's not a big deal. We never did talk another time. And then I just rushed up to get the shot. Sprinted to capture this moment because I was shooting another moment and I forgot that Billie was already in the car, and I sprinted and I hit record running up to the car, and I pull up the camera and I kid you not, the door opened like right then, and he says like her name or something like that, and Billie walks out, and it was like perfect timing. But I literally was like running and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm gonna capture this. I'm just gonna hit record now so it's already rolling. And it was really crazy. Other than that, I had no planned shots for any of this. I knew I wanted to get a lot of coverage, and I think if I did one thing that I didn't capture well is I didn't capture the crowd. It was a very short set considering that half of it was dedicated to the featured artist. And so you'll see this video and it's very focused heavy on the artist and the guests that he's brought out. But there's no real good crowd shots or from back, like front of house, kind of like with their hands up and then you see the stage. I love capturing those shots and I just didn't get the time to do it. Yo, so the beginning of this video was actually really cool. It was something new that I feel like I haven't done in any of my other videos. And it was the last thing I did in this video. And when it happened, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. I was like wrestling with this video. I was like, this is just so like cookie cutter. It's cool because of the people, but from like a videography and an editing perspective, I haven't done anything new and I want to push myself. And not that this is anything like groundbreaking, but it added this flair that I think hadn't been seen in one of my videos before. And it's this like overlay, burnt look. And the reason why I haven't been able to do it is because it requires your talent to be on a very solid background or like a white background. And because I had shot Khalid during rehearsals, I actually had this one small moment that basically is the whole clip is there. I don't have any other length of it, but basically Khalid is singing behind or in front of a huge LED screen, and it was just pure white, and he was like silhouetted, and that's allowing me to really get like this double exposure look that you see at the very beginning, where you see this outline of Khalid with other visuals in the background happening. that are iconic staples of Coachella with the astronaut and the Ferris wheel, which was awesome that somebody sent me, an anonymous drone pilot of Coachella sent me, which was amazing. I was very grateful to have that clip. Also, something that's like important in your edits is getting access to things that the general public doesn't. And I think a lot of editors in the music industry don't go this extra mile. And that's what I think sets me apart a little bit, is because I go to artists and I say, yo, can I get the stems of the song? Which is like a very vulnerable thing. The stems is like all the magic. Like if the stems get released to the public, people can basically remake the song. They can change the pitch. It's like having a raw like photo file versus a JPEG, but like times 10. Like you can change the tempo, the speed, the tone, everything with stems. And what you're hearing at the beginning of these videos are vocal stems. And I was able to work with Khalid's team, and that was something that was great because they are very systematic, and they have their designated teams that are helping Khalid operate as like an amazing entertainment entity that's touring the world. Is I was able to send an email and they sent it super fast. And at the beginning, you hear all these familiar sounds from a lot of iconic songs from Khalid, but they're like simplified and they're like soloed, and that always makes for amazing intros in my mind. We just did it for the Chainsmokers at Lollapalooza. The very beginning is a vocal stem from Takeaway, which sounds incredible. And yeah, that's what we did at the beginning of this show, and we just paired it up with the visuals that you're seeing. So the beginning was a big song for Khalid, and then when John Mayer comes on screen, you hear a little vocal stem from that song that they did. Billie, that was not even Khalid's song with Billie, but I just used it because I thought it was tight. Right here, I use this really cool POV look that like blurs and kind of warps the screen, and then there's actually like an eyelash that you can put into this clip. And so if you look at the top of this clip with Billie, there's an eyelash, and I think there's a couple of like blinks that I've like put into it too, of like this eyelash blinking that gives it like this not like the audio cutting out, those are just hard cuts, but there's like blinks after that give it this look of like there's that's like a POV, that's like a person watching it. And I wanted to give people this like super surreal POV perspective of Billie walking out in front of a massive crowd. If you see at the beginning of that clip, it's like it's pointed at the ground and I lifted up and it happened. This whole like wavy thing with Billie is called a slit scan. I do it like once a year in a video, and I always forget how to do it in After Effects, so I just check out a YouTube video. It's called a slit scan though. That alone took me 4 hours to find. And that effect is inspired off of one of Flume's music videos at the Sydney Opera House. It's like very famous. If you don't know, just type in Flume Sydney Opera House and then go fast forward through like 4 minutes and then boom, that effect. Except for this is a really crappy version of it, to be fair. Not even gonna fake that it was anywhere close to what Flume's editing team did. But nobody's doing it, and that's what's important. This was a little bit of a different take from me as far as an edit, because I basically cut and blended in a lot of different tracks and I wanted to highlight like how busy Khalid has been and how many people he's collaborated with. He brought so many people on stage, and I wanted to like cut to every single song of the guests that had come out. And that was a little different for me, and I think there's like the challenge is to make sure that all the tracks blend together, and I was really excited how it came out. So that drum fill that you see after East Side actually is what the live version of one of the songs was, and it was a live transition, like drum transition into a new song. And I heard it live, and I knew that the guy I was getting all the vocal stems from had the live playback version that they actually played at Coachella, which I had heard a ton in rehearsals, and I said, hey, can I get this live element? And I just ripped those drums, put some visuals of the drums happening, and it's very disruptive, and in my mind, it shows the viewer that like whatever happens next, you're like, it doesn't matter. Right? But if you went from like a big, famous, recognizable track into another recognizable track, it would be super awkward. You got to disrupt it and bring people back in. Boom. I didn't shoot this at all. Also the photos, like, again, if you're strapped for footage, I think multimedia, any media you can pull in other than outside your camera, like news clips. Like was there like some news station reported about Coachella and maybe even talked about Khalid. So go scour YouTube for an hour and say, Khalid, Channel 5 News, Coachella, and see if anybody reported on Khalid. And then maybe you rip that off and then you put that in the video and that's your intro. Here I was in a bind and it was a little bit boring and I needed something disruptive. So I used a lot of Anthony's footage and a lot of his photos to flash really fast to kind of be disruptive to go into the next section. Lots of TOBK Twitch in this one. If you don't have it, guys, it's linked down below. It's a $20 plugin effect. It's drag and drop, and it does this little like TV glitch that you're seeing throughout all of this video. It's like a TV spotlight thing. I actually created it while editing for the music industry, and I love it. And that's why we included it in this one. Something I hated about this video was that I have footage for a 5-minute storytelling piece of how Khalid got to Coachella, like road to Coachella from rehearsals with dancers, with an orchestra, with the choir, everybody. It's like he put in so much work and there were so many people and there's so many people involved, there's so many people on stage, and we've documented all of it, and their team was like, we want a 60-second video because we get bored after 1-minute videos. And I said, I have enough footage for a 6-minute video. How about we make something that's like 3 minutes for YouTube? And they're just like, I don't think anybody's gonna watch it. And I was like, this is such a cool story. Like, you're opening for Ariana Grande on the biggest stage in America right now. Like, let's do a bigger video. And they said 1 minute, and then I made 1 minute, and then they're like, okay, come shoot weekend 2. And I was like, okay, are we gonna make another minute? They're like, no, we don't wanna pay for that. And I was like, well, then what are we shooting weekend 2 for? Anthony shot weekend 2. They were like, okay, can you insert it into the first video? I was like, well, it's already a minute. What would you like to take out? And it's already jam-packed because we have to feature every guest, right? And I just left it up to them. I said, what would you like to take out? Because in my mind, nothing can be removed. Like, every shot has a featured artist in it. And it's already jam-packed. And they couldn't come up with it, so they said just add it on. So now we're going over a minute, so that just screws up everything on Instagram. And so the final video is 1 minute and 11 seconds with the new artist in it. And then once I did 1 minute and 11, they said, hey, like, man, we wish we would have made a longer video that just told the full story. And then I just like wanted to shoot myself, and I was like, that's literally what I've been saying this whole time. I could have had that done the week after Coachella, and now here we are 3 weeks after, and we're both just like responding to one email every 2 days, and it was just like, dang it, we're missing such a cool opportunity here. So I might even do it. Like, I'm just launching on my page, like Khalid's Road to Coachella, throwback, and just release it. I know he's on a massive tour right now, and I think maybe if he's doing like a documentary of any kind, we could like somehow include that this was kicking off his massive arena tour in the United States. And so maybe this is like the kickoff portion of that documentary, and I could create the 2 to 3 minute Road to Coachella story. So anyways, this was a lot different. It was great. It was an awesome experience for me. I've always wanted to shoot at Coachella. It was a dream of mine to shoot at Coachella, and which is like rare. I don't ever like say I'm like dreaming to do like to shoot something. Like, I wanted to shoot at Tomorrowland, and so when I saw the opportunity, I made sure I could go. But I wasn't like dreaming about it. Coachella was like, it's so close to where I live. I'd never been. All my friends were going. All my friends were paying for tickets. And I said, I think I can go, and I could get paid to go. And so I just put that challenge out. Like, I'm not gonna go until I get paid. That was the challenge I put out for myself when I was in college and I didn't have any money. And I was like, you shouldn't be spending this money on a ticket right now. So put the challenge out for yourself to like go get a job. I tried the first year. I got hired for a party outside of Coachella, so I ended up going to all the festivities and everything, but I never went into the festival. Blast, it was super fun. And then the next year, I think that same year I was supposed to shoot a billboard for Rory because he was shooting the Chainsmokers. That was in 2016. And it was so windy, and I put a drone up, and my drone was just flying away. That was the first year. Second year, I was on tour with Chainsmokers on the arena tour. Wasn't an option. And then this year, it was like the week before, and I was like, dang, like I really want to go to Coachella. I spent 2 days just like working on all my connections and trying to make it happen, and it got approved like 3 days before, and I'm not like one that's like, you need to speak this into existence, but I think you telling people about it and being proactive towards it is really important. And it got pulled off. But I was ready to buy a ticket like the day before. I was like, I'm gonna go on eBay, Craigslist. I don't even know how to buy like a secondhand ticket at Coachella, but I was at the point I was like, all right, I'm giving up. I'm gonna go do it. And this came through, which was awesome. And I also shot for a Red Bull that weekend too, which I'm sure we'll do another video. But regardless, build connections. Know that the connections that you see value for in that moment are so much bigger than you actually are like comprehending them as, just because you don't even know what's gonna happen in the future. But this is a perfect case for it. I learned so much here from the stage, from the show, from the networking, from a new artist, and I'm stoked to work with him again. I'm sure it's gonna happen, but let us know if you didn't get any questions answered about this. If you're curious about anything, I will answer it in the comments. Season 2 is all about the comment section. If you're not commenting on the season, get the heck out of here, because that's all this is about. Comment, I'll hit you back, and we'll make episodes based off of all the comments.